Hey y'all, happy Sunday. I think we are live. I'm gonna look at the comments. But welcome. My name is Marissa Price. I am a healing practitioner. I am a YouTube creator with my YouTube channel, Marissa Price Heals. I also live abroad at the moment in Guadalajara, Mexico. And so thank y'all so much for sticking with us as we were working through a technical issue. But I'm gonna get to my notes, but let me know how y'all are doing. Happy Sunday. And thank you to Rashida for asking me to guest host on this Sunday. And I see so many comments of us being different places in the world. So if you'd like to share where you are in the world, I would love to read it. But today is really about healing. So that is the focus on my YouTube channel, providing safe places for Black women to heal, process trauma, things that we've experienced, which, as someone who has moved abroad myself, a lot of these very traumatic experiences can come just flooding back. And so being able to be prepared as you can, right, for these experiences, for these memories to really come back when you're in a place where you don't have to be in survival mode 24/7, as being in the US forces us into so often, right? And I put in the chat earlier, we are conditioned, we are socialized to push our bodies past the point of exhaustion as a way to prove to other people, right, that we are worthy, that we deserve to be in a space. And so, what happens when you're able to release that, to really come into your inherent worth, which is what traveling abroad and moving abroad has provided so many of us with, to be able to be like, no, I'm worthy inherently, right? I don't have to prove it to this institution, this person that tells me, like, kind of dangles it, right? It makes me jump for it. I am inherently worthy because I am here. And so we're going to be talking about nervous system restoration and self reclamation on the journey of traveling and moving abroad. So I see all the comments. Hello, good morning. And thank y'all for waiting as we were working through a technical issue. I appreciate that. And thank you to Rashida for asking me to guest host today. Yes. Yes. So I do offer, as a healing practitioner, I am a social worker. So I do offer healing support. If you are someone who is traveling abroad, moving abroad, and you're looking for someone to work through past traumatic experiences, a lot of the things that I've shared on my channel are around toxic jobs. And as the co-founder of the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women with Dr. Kamani, Lifting as We Climb Consulting on YouTube, we have done so much work to be able to share that toxicity is not the only option for us. And that really includes, right, the country that we live in, and not viewing ourselves as having to stay in a certain place if it's harming us, and instead embracing your autonomy to be able to move around the world, right, and not feel like you have to be stuck in a certain place. And that's really the value of communities like Exodus Summit that have provided us with the resources to be able to make plans, share resources, and so we don't have to start at square one all the time. And so just shout out to Exodus Summit for really providing us with those resources to be able to make this transition abroad for so many of us. But good morning, good morning. Yes. Okay, so let me get to my notes. Okay, so I do want to do a grounding practice before we get started. So this is really about coming home to the body, right? Which traveling abroad or moving abroad can help us do, but wherever you are, right? If you're still in a place, if you're still making your plan, you can always incorporate somatic healing practices into your life. And in fact, it could be really great preparation for your journey abroad to be able to self-regulate, because there are so many changes that happen once you move abroad, so many new things that you're experiencing. Sometimes the language barrier. I know, as someone with social anxiety, learning a new language is a whole new thing, even though I've been practicing Spanish for quite a while. But it's different where you're in a place, when you're in a place, right? And that's the only language being spoken. And so being able to self-regulate, to understand what you're feeling, where it's coming from, to be able to sit with it, process it, that's a huge tool just to have in your toolkit in life, right? Regardless if you travel or move abroad. So I do want to start with a grounding practice here. So let's take a moment to arrive, right? Not just into this live stream today, but into ourselves. If it feels okay, you gently lower your gaze or close your eyes. Find a posture or a position that feels good. Know that there's no right way to sit or to be. However you are is fine. Now place one hand on your heart if it feels comfortable, and one hand on your belly. Feeling the warmth of your own presence. Taking a deep breath in through the nose, and slowly sighing it out through the mouth. Again, breathing in, and then gently letting go. Beginning to notice the parts of your body that are supported. Your seat, your feet on the floor, your back against a chair. Just bringing your awareness to these things that are supporting you. And saying quietly to yourself or in your head, I am supported. And now bringing your attention to your heartbeat. No need to change anything. Just notice. You are here. You are alive. Your body has truly carried you through so much. And you can say softly to yourself, my body is allowed to exhale. I do not have to brace for harm in this moment. It is safe for me to take up space here. And if your mind drifts, know that that's okay. You can always come back to the rise and fall of your breath as an anchor. So inhaling here, I am worthy of rest. And then exhaling, I choose to come home to myself. And taking one more deep breath in here. And releasing anything that you've been carrying feels heavy. And when you're ready, if you close them, gently begin to flutter your eyes open. Know that you are here. You made it. We made it. And I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. Now let me look in the chat. Welcome, welcome. Yes, thank you so much for your patience. Yes, we appreciate y'all. Welcome, welcome. Peace, love, and blessings, ladies. Natural health, natural beauty. I love that name. Welcome. Good morning. Yes, Junket 3000. Yes, we knew it happened. Thank you so much for waiting. Yes. Okay. So let's get into it. So I would love to know, for those of you who have traveled or moved abroad, if anything has come up around healing, right? As I mentioned at the top, if past memories have kind of made their way back. So sometimes when we are in survival mode, right, it turns on a part of our nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system. And so this is where we're really not able to access these deep memories, these deep feelings, realizations about life. And it's only when we transition into our parasympathetic nervous system, and that is what breath work can help you do, where you're able to really sit with and like ponder on life. And all of a sudden, these memories come back, right? Because many of us are dissociated, right? Which is just a term like it can feel like you're floating above your body, but you're removed from your reality, oftentimes because it's so traumatic, the environment that you're in. And so once you have a chance to get in an environment that feels more supportive, where you feel safe to kind of unfurl, some of these thoughts, feelings, things that you've been suppressing can really come back to the surface, and it can be overwhelming on this journey abroad. So I would love to know if you're comfortable sharing, has anyone experienced this, right? Because speaking from myself, now being in Guadalajara for a little over 2 years now, this is one of the biggest things that I've had to move through, and realizing that you can move through discomfort, right? So these feelings, these things that we have suppressed, it may be uncomfortable when we start to realize, especially if you're being treated as you should have been treated all along, and just contrasting that to your experiences for decades, maybe, can be like, wow, I really should never have experienced that or encountered that. That person should have never said that to me. And then all these feelings are there, right? That are now there, right? For us to move through, to work through things that may have been buried for some time. I love this. I almost went back to sleep and I'm standing. I appreciate this. Yes. Yes. And breath work can really be an effective, easy, free tool just to incorporate into like daily life. If you are looking to start the healing journey and you don't know where to even begin, which again is something I offer support with if you are traveling, moving abroad, or if you're still making your plan, working through past traumatic experiences to really come into your power. So I specifically work with sensitive, introverted, and or empathic Black women who have been impacted by things like narcissistic abuse, mistreatment, right? Toxic workplaces. And many times the roots of these things are in childhood. And so with my clients, working through how do you even begin to reclaim your power? I will be hosting a group healing program that I just created today, actually, starting at, let's see, a couple hours from now, 2 p.m. Eastern, called Silence Your Inner Critic, because the inner criticism can really turn up when you are in an unfamiliar environment. If you are used to having things a certain way and now all of a sudden like your routine is thrown off, that voice can become even louder, right? I should have known this. Why didn't I plan for this? And part of healing is really being able to be the most gentle person with yourself in your life. So giving yourself compassion, grace as you're moving through this. The journey abroad is, right, really, it can bring up a lot of things, I'll say. So you can have the resources, you can have the plan in place, but the unexpected things often are the emotions that come up, right? The fear, the uncertainty. If you're in an unfamiliar environment, right? And you're dealing with something like social anxiety, how do I move through this in order to get my needs met, right? In order to ask this person for help? All these things that we may not be prepared for. And so even having a realization of things that you may encounter can be helpful. And knowing that you can move through these things with incorporating things like breath work, mindfulness, right? Understanding the roots of these things. Shout out to Angela Kanu, who I did a workshop with called Healing from Childhood Attachment Wounds, fellow social worker. And we were both in Rashida's group From Burnout to Bliss. But her really giving the advice to tell yourself your own story, right? Life story work. What things have you been through that may now be appearing in this new environment? Are there situations that remind you of past trauma? And now you're feeling your body like have this response that you weren't prepared for. And knowing that that's normal, right? In this journey of moving abroad, there are so many changes that happen so quickly. And so just giving yourself the level of grace that you deserve, right? It's so important. Thank you for this question. The significance of the hand on the heart and the stomach. So this is really a grounding tool. So being able to connect with your heartbeat, right, can help you really stay in the present moment. Know that your body is still here, right? So you're still in the present moment. You can feel your heartbeat. Many times, those of us who have anxiety, it can feel like we're just all over the place, right? Floating above our bodies sometimes if we've dissociated. And so having grounding tools to connect you to your body through breath, through feeling your heartbeat, right? In your stomach, just your bodily responses coming back into what is your body feeling in this moment versus feeling so disconnected that we're just all up in our brains, all of the thoughts are just rolling around, and that's where the spiral can start. So anything that you can do that really can ground you and reconnect you to your body, and that's the purpose of somatic exercises, can really be an effective tool to help you. Good morning. Good morning. Yes. Okay. So, yes, so the collapse after survival mode. And I would love to hear or see or read in the chat if you have experienced this. So, you can be expecting to feel joy, freedom, and relief, right? But other things may pop up that you may not expect. So, you can feel exhaustion, right? And those of us who have taken a sabbatical or time off work, maybe for the first time in our lives, the level of exhaustion that comes flooding back when we have had to perform, when we have had to pretend, when we have had to overwork our bodies for these external things that we're taught to seek, when you finally allow yourself to rest, all of that exhaustion that you have been feeling but suppressing to survive can really come all the way back, right? And so being able to be prepared for that, knowing that nothing is wrong with you, if you have planned this journey abroad, right, this trip, and all you can do is sleep, that's your body telling you, I need to rest, right? I need to process what I've been through in this really traumatic environment and not feeling like anything is wrong with you. And giving yourself that level of flexibility and adaptability, which is so critical on the journey abroad, being able to adapt to different situations versus having such a rigid idea, even with ourselves, of how things are supposed to be, right? If your body is calling for rest, know that you can honor that, right? Know that experiencing a deep bone level tiredness after all of the trauma that we encounter in the US, day in and day out, or wherever country you're from, right? That can come rearing back when you are in a new environment, when you are making this journey abroad. And so that's something to be prepared for, right? Not something to criticize yourself for, but your body is responding to the trauma that you have experienced. So your body can feel like collapsing really after years of hypervigilance. The level of awareness that we have to have scanning our environment for potential danger, right? Things that are not necessarily spoken, but that we feel. And so we're processing all of these things behind the scenes. That's a lot of work that our bodies are doing, that our brains are trying to process, right? Being hypervigilant as a survival tactic. And so when you are out of this environment in a new environment where you feel safe, maybe for the first time, where you're able to exhale, all of that tiredness may come right back up to the surface and you may need to rest, right? You may need a week, 2 weeks to just sit and do nothing, right? That is your body's way of processing what you've been through. Even if you've had all these plans, right, laid out meticulously, right? This is a place I'm going to go. This is a place I'm going to go. And your body says, I can't. I need time to rest. And so it's important to be able to grant yourself permission to do that, right? When we're no longer scanning for harm 24/7, our nervous system can begin to thaw. So if you think about it like that, your nervous system may have been in freeze response, right? Not months, not years, maybe decades. And so you're transitioning into a new chapter where your nervous system is beginning to unfreeze. And that is a process over time, right? It's not something that happens overnight. It is a practice that you put into place to be able to, as we just walked through, incorporating breath work, incorporating grounding exercises, slowly over time, telling yourself your own story as you begin to heal from the traumatic experiences that you encountered, right? So knowing that the fatigue that you're experiencing, the tearfulness that may come up, if you've had to suppress your emotions, the harm that has been done to you, right? The urge to do nothing, that is your body healing, right? Which again, so many of us have to be, there's pressure to be dissociated from our bodies completely in the society that we're in, right? Because of course, the people who are oppressing us do not want us to tap into our body signals, right? They do not view us as human, right? As having the capacity to have urges, right? That come to our bodies, that we need to rest, that we need to lay down, that we can't keep going past these stopping points. They don't want us to be tapped into that. And so it is a point of resistance to be able to acknowledge the sensations in your body, right? And using that as a compass to guide your way forward. And in fact, so many of us, like the journey abroad, it may have started with that, and we may not even be aware, right? So a feeling that we have that this is not right, right? The tension that I'm holding, the environments that I'm in. Again, on my channel, Marissa Price Heals, I talk so often about toxic jobs. And shout out to Dr. Kamani, who opened the door for so many of us to share our experiences in toxic work environments, right? When you're able to fully sit with the pain that you may have endured in this environment, right? Can you give yourself that level of compassion, grace, understanding that your body has been through a highly traumatic experience? And so you may not be able to do all the things on your itinerary. And it's just giving yourself that level of grace. So I moved to Mexico, Guadalajara specifically, and I've been here a little over 2 years. Yes. Thank you for that question. Good morning. Good morning. And yes, for those of you who just joined, I'm Marissa Price. I'm a healing practitioner helping sensitive, introverted, and/or empathic Black women reclaim our power, heal from past trauma. And I have lived abroad in Mexico, Guadalajara, for a little over 2 years now. And Rashida has asked me, thank you, Rashida, to guest host today. So yeah, I think being part of the Exodus Summit community has really opened so many of our eyes to the fact that what we've been experiencing should not be normalized. It's presented as normal, right? This is just what we have to endure. We have to suffer. We have to sacrifice. And it's just opened so many of our imaginations, right? To different ways of living other than what is handed to us as the only way. Yeah. Just looking through the comments. Hey, Maya, good to see you here as always. Yes, for me, it's been exhaustion, literally needing weeks of rest. Yeah. And thank you for saying this. Yeah. And just realizing that nothing is wrong with you. Again, if you've had these travel dreams that you've been planning for months, for years, you finally get to your destination and your body says, no, I need to rest, right? I'm healing from trauma now that you have this awareness, giving yourself that level of understanding that you may not be able to get to everything on your itinerary, and that's okay. Your body is still processing what you went through in the environment that you were in. Yeah. Hey, Fruit Bloom Room. Yes, it's like how students often get sick immediately after final exams. Yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah. because all the tension that you've been holding, as we talked about, your nervous system might be in freeze mode for years, for decades. And then what happens when you're finally able to exhale and those emotions come back up, right? Your body is reacting to all the times that you've had to suppress feelings like anger, right? Being mistreated, the microaggressions that we experience. So many different things. And so finally getting into a spot, right? If you're able to travel to a different place, that can be the doorway to really allowing yourself to be like, oh, wow, I feel safe in this environment for the first time. And now I can express my emotions, right? And I always say on my channel, like journaling can be a great way to start to do this if you're new to the healing journey. Journaling, voice noting, if you're not a writer, just being able to speak out loud to yourself. How are you feeling in any given moment? Be in your own safe place on the journey to healing. Yeah. I felt overwhelmed, sad, depleted, discarded, unseen. I experienced immense anxiety packing for my son and I to leave. Realized I needed to let go. Trusting and going abroad feels so healing. Thank you for sharing this. Yeah. Thank you. Right. And just to normalize those emotions, right? This process of traveling abroad, moving abroad can bring up all these things. It can be very overwhelming. It can bring up disappointments, right? Feeling depleted. There's a lot that goes into this. Yes. Feeling unseen. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And so the anxiety that you may be experiencing, know that this is new for a lot of us. This is new, the idea that we can travel, right? And I'll speak for myself, like kind of being the first person in my family to really travel abroad, right? It can feel, if you're the first one doing it, you're experiencing all these things for the first time. And so something I talk about often is many of us are healing generationally. So not just individually, but we're healing generationally, right? From past generations, what they were not able to do, emotions they were not able to access that they had to suppress to be in survival mode to survive, to get through, and just recognizing the weight of that. Yeah. So hello, just scrolling through the comments. Thank y'all so much for being here. Again, I'm guest hosting for Rashida. So thank you so much, Rashida, for asking me to guest host. And I'm Marissa Price. I'm a healing practitioner helping sensitive, introverted, and or empathic Black women reclaim our power, unlearn negative self-talk, heal from past traumatic experiences that try to tell us we were unworthy, tell us we were too sensitive, and all these things, right, that I share about on my channel, Marissa Price Heals. So please subscribe if you're interested in healing, because I have a lot of great guests that I've interviewed too, and a couple more coming up this month that I'm excited about, who are really going to share what it's like to prioritize yourself after years of self-sacrificing. Yeah. Okay, just going through the comments. Oh, I love this. Hey, Dr. Crystal. Yes. Over the course of the year I've been traveling, I've had to keep reminding myself that I deserve the sabbatical. It's triggering in others to see us to try to live free and at ease. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. 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 And that's a really good point. What affirmations can you repeat to yourself? Right? Positive affirmations, as a lot of us are in learning negative self-talk, which again, let me post in the chat. I am hosting an upcoming group healing program starting today, actually, 2 p.m. Eastern. Silence Your Inner Critic. Right? So a lot of us have reels on replay internally of criticism that we have internalized from other people who have been highly critical of us in harmful, traumatic, toxic environments. And so if that's on a replay internally and we're repeating these to ourselves, how could that be disrupting our healing process? Right? And just recognizing that we have the power to stop that reel. And also that it's not our voice. It's someone else's voice that we've internalized that has been highly critical. And often people have projected, right, how they feel about themselves onto us throughout our lives. And then we've taken that on as truth when it's really just a projection. And how can you begin to detach, right, what they have said, what they have told you, what this environment has told you you are, to who you are authentically? That can really be healing. Yeah. I found myself mentally rehearsing even the final weeks before my retirement, some of the crazy things that were said. I wasn't depressed, just numb. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yes. And this brings up like rumination, right? Again, if we have, as you said, the crazy things that are repeated to us over and over again, it can just be on a reel, right? And knowing that we have the power to intervene, that critic that we've internalized is not truly who we are, because we do not come here criticizing ourselves. And so somewhere along the way, we've internalized someone else's voice, someone else's opinion, someone else's projection. And those of us who are sensitive and we feel deeply, we want to help people, right? We're especially susceptible to these things, which narcissists, they target us so often. And so being able to separate, what did this person say to me versus who I know myself to be? And letting their projection, their opinion go, uprooting it from your being and actually replacing it with Dr. Crystal said, like an affirmation, I deserve this. I deserve to live free. I deserve to live at ease. Of course. Right? And it can feel impossible when you're first starting if all you have heard on a loop is negative messages to yourself that have been reinforced, right, through oppressive systems. It can feel impossible, but with a practice over time, gently incorporating these into your life, positive affirmations, becoming aware of the way that you speak to yourself, and then replacing it with something that's compassionate. Every time you're aware, that was actually pretty harsh to myself, right? Next time I'm in this situation or I'm trying something new, I'm actually going to be compassionate. I'm actually going to tell myself, you did a really good job for showing up. Even if it didn't go the way that you wanted it to, the fact that you showed up, right? I'm celebrating you for that. These are messages that you can repeat to yourself instead of the ones that have been highly critical, and knowing that you have the power to do that. I'm curious to know what finally made, yes, make the move. Did you test out different areas to be sure they're hospitable to Black women in particular? So what made me make the move is being in a highly toxic job that really tried to extract my power, tried to make me silence my own voice. And I really had to leave the US for a period, right? Because it was the job that I was in was so deeply entangled into US policy that I had to like take a break from the US. And so trying out different cities within Mexico and just ultimately kind of moving to Guadalajara. I think I saw Sandra from Lack to Legacy on YouTube. Her travel to Guadalajara. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. Kind of moving here on a whim, doing like the basic research, of course, and having scouted a few other cities in Mexico. But yeah, just kind of taking a leap with the information that I had, knowing who I am, right? That I am a problem solver, that I am able to do all these things. And the journey abroad can really help you prove or like sit in that realization of who you are, no matter what environment you're in, right? That you know how to problem solve, you know how to look for resources, All these things that are permanent within us, just as our skill set is, right? That can really be a source of rebuilding self-confidence if you are in something like I was in, highly toxic, traumatic work environment, and being in a place now where people are kind, right? And able to, I guess, honor sensitivity. Because so often in the US, that is not, it's viewed as a flaw to be able to feel. Yeah. Yes. So true. We can turn off the internal critic. We can. We can. Thank you for that. Yeah. So you do not have to keep repeating to yourself criticism. And even that has been a huge point of awareness on my personal journey, right? You can actually reprogram your inner monologue to be one that is supportive, compassionate, empathetic, all the things that you may have needed throughout these various points in your life that no one provided you with. Can you now provide these things to yourself by reprogramming your inner monologue, right? To be one of compassion, self acceptance, your own gentle space. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate this. I've worked with her and have experienced tremendous healing from our few sessions together so far. Thank you. Thank you so much. And so, yes, I do offer one on one support. Let me put my link here. As a social worker, a trained social worker, and a healing practitioner, really leaning into decolonial healing outside of the traditional ways that we view healing, I guess, which is very hierarchical, very rigid, very structured, and really regarding the clients that I am blessed to work with as their own, right? Their own expert of their own lives. I can only come in with the training that I have as a social worker, right? The resources I can share, the tools that I've learned, but you are really the expert of your own life, right? You know what you need. And so that is how I view decolonial healing. And yes, if you're interested in working with me, that is my link as well. So let me get back to my notes. So another part of healing while traveling or moving abroad can really be grieving the life you had to survive. So the grief may pop up when we're making this transition, right? Maybe thinking we'd only feel happiness, freedom, right? But what is bubbling up to the surface is sorrow, is grief, is regret, is disappointment. And giving yourself room for all of the emotions that pop up, even the ones that surprise us, that we're not prepared for, right? Knowing that we have the power to move through what comes up, because the pain really comes when we suppress, right? Because the way that we are feeling, the emotions that we're experiencing are meant to be expressed, even if just to ourselves. That counts too, right? Even if you're not able at a place yet to be able to share it with anyone else, can you have that level of vulnerability with yourself to be able to say, I'm really struggling right now, right? I'm really sad. I did not expect this level of grief to appear, yet here it is. Meeting it with compassion, awareness, curiosity, instead of immediately trying to suppress. And knowing it's there for a reason. So you may be grieving things like the childhood you didn't get to have, the softness you had to sacrifice, the relationships you left behind, even if they were toxic, right? You may finally have the space to feel what you have been numbing for years, maybe decades. And so I want to ask y'all, anything that you have begun grieving, if you are on a journey of traveling or moving abroad, anything that has popped up that may have been surprising, right? And just because an environment is toxic or traumatic does not mean there's not going to be a level of grief around leaving it. And that includes a country. Because we become accustomed, right? To doing things a certain way, to our environment being a certain way. And so anytime we make a change, a transition, grief may pop up, and it may be unexpected, and it may be surprising, right? Why would I grieve something that harmed me? Because this is what you've been used to. This is the environment you've been in for years. And it's a change. It's a transition to come into something new, even if it's better, even if it is more easeful, right? That level of grief can still be there. And to be able to acknowledge that nothing is wrong with you, that is a normal emotion to experience when you're making such a huge transition, such as moving abroad. Good morning. Thank you for joining. This is happening right now. Such a synchronicity. You appeared for the first time to me. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, synchronicities. And please subscribe. Let me put my YouTube channel in here. If you're interested in content like this going forward, and thank you to Rashida for having me as a guest host today. But on my channel, Marissa Price Heals, really creating a safe space for sensitive, introverted, and or empathic Black women to come back into our power, because it is, people view it as a weakness so often to feel deeply, and really coming into the fact that it's a gift, right? It's an ancestral gift that has been bestowed upon us. And how can we lean into the power of things that we feel, of our emotions, as a compass in life to guide us towards different situations, environments, countries, versus turning it off, suppressing it, and then our bodies will react. We'll often have physical symptoms when we try to suppress how we feel, especially those of us who are highly sensitive. And so being your own safe place to be able to allow those emotions to breathe, to flow through, can be a really huge part of healing. Yeah. Okay, scroll through the comments. Thank you so much for this. Oaxaca, that's on my list to visit. Thank you so much. Yes. Okay, so something else that may come up is a disorientation of softness, right? Questioning, who am I if I'm not in grind mode, if I'm not in hustle mode, if I'm not proving myself, if I'm not performing for other people, who am I? Really a question of identity. And shout out to Lamazini on YouTube, Rashni Cope, who does a lot of work around this area, having us identify the pieces of ourselves, right, that are permanent, who we are as people versus the roles that we play for other people. Right? So this question may be terrifying, asking yourself, who am I? Maybe if you feel so disconnected from your authentic self, maybe if it's been years since you've really allowed yourself to feel because you've been in survival mode. Right? Just understanding that your identity, right, could have been built around enduring through these really harsh, toxic, traumatic environments, countries that we're surviving in. Right? So beginning to taste softness after years of harshness may be disorienting. You may not know how to trust it. But it's really affirming to yourself, right, that softness can be safe. And so I want to ask, have you experienced this at all? Kind of a disorientation around resting, around being your own soft place, your own compassionate place. When transitioning out of survival mode, that so many of these environments pressure us to be in, they keep us in this for a reason, to cut us off from how we feel. to cut us off from our imaginations, our creativity. And that can bring up disorientation, right? Because all this time you've been operating highly structured, the pressure to perform for other people, to mask. And then once you come into a new environment where there is more softness, right? Acceptance, compassion, there can be a trauma response, right? I don't trust it. I don't trust it because I've never experienced it. Something I've had to work through on this journey abroad. Yeah. Thank you for this. Yeah. It's very hard to deal with. Yeah. Yeah. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Nervous system recalibration from flight and fight for years. That's it. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're recalibrating your nervous system. So your nervous system has been in, yes, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, the four main trauma responses that we go into. And who are you outside of this, right? Outside of these ways that our body has protected us in these unsafe environments. Now, when you experience a level of safety, who are you truly? Right? And I asked myself this question. I think I put it out on Instagram. Like, is it really part of your personality or is it a trauma response? And that can be an important question to sit with. Those of us who experience social anxiety, like I do, knowing that the roots of this are very deep, right? This was a protective measure that my brain went into in harsh environment, after harsh environment, and transitioning to an environment now where there is more safety, I would say, compassion. That can be a disorienting process, right? And so if you're experiencing that, knowing that nothing is wrong with you, you're changing, you're making this huge transition, and your nervous system is trying to adapt, right? You're gaining new information. You're really charting a new path forward, which is not always the easiest thing to do, right? But knowing that we can move through difficult emotions, we have the ability to do that. So something else that may come up, triggers in unexpected places, right? So there may be triggers to past traumatic experiences when we travel or move abroad. Things like culture shock, language barriers, and not feeling fully at home can trigger past wounds where you may have felt these exact same things in past environments. And really the key here again is nervous system awareness, which is why we went through the exercise at the top, right? The grounding exercise, the placing a hand on your heart to feel your heartbeat to ground you, coming back into your body. Another exercise could be look around and naming 5 things you can see. I think it's 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can smell. It's your 5 senses, right? So if you count down with your 5 senses, that is a really helpful way to be able to ground you in the present moment. Come back into your body. Because again, many of us are dissociated, which just means disconnected from our bodies. We may feel like we're floating above our bodies, like we don't even really recognize what's happening, which is how they want us in this society, right? Again, they do not want us to be able to recognize how we're feeling. And so it is a point of resistance to continue the practice of coming into your body, feeling your feet on the ground, breathing into your belly, coming into your parasympathetic nervous system, which is a state your nervous system is in when you are relaxed, when you are calm. And that really leaves a space for deeper reflection to come in. And so a question for the chat, what helps you come back to yourself? If you are traveling, if you've moved abroad, when you felt that trigger, when you felt that bodily response, right? The language barrier can be something that triggers that. Not feeling fully at home where you are. Again, if you're used to having a very routine way of doing things, a very structured way, and coming into an environment where people may do things right in the moment, that's going to be a transition, right? That's going to be a change. That's going to be a new way of doing things, of seeing things. And it may trigger our nervous systems to reject, right? This doesn't feel normal. This doesn't feel safe. It's working through those emotions, knowing where they're coming from, right? This is a new thing that you're doing. So it's going to be a process over time, and knowing that you have the ability to move through that. Yeah. Hello, hoping to move to Mexico soon. What are some reasons you chose Guadalajara? Thank you for this question. The people first. I really enjoy the people in Guadalajara, the level of community. I would say the weather. It is in the rainy season right now. And I'm one of those rare people who loves snow. So I won't say the weather, but um, yeah, the people, the community. I think the art throughout the city. There's a lot of murals that I've been able to take pictures of. The food and the proximity still to the U.S. to be able to visit family, which I do. So yeah, those are just some of the reasons. Okay. So another thing that can come up, loneliness and isolation. So being abroad, loneliness can feel complicated, right? You're in a new place, maybe even paradise, maybe even something that you've been planning, you've been looking forward to. And still you may feel deeply alone, right? And it's leaving space for that and seeking out community. Again, I think Exodus Summit has been such a fantastic resource in being able to connect, right? Us to resources, to people who are already there, who can share with us what they've done so that we don't have to start from square one, because that can be extremely overwhelming, right? So if you're able to connect with a community there, that can be a great way to move through loneliness and begin kind of coming out of isolation, right? Because a lot of the times in the environments that we're in, self-isolating is a survival tactic. Because we had been in, maybe we had put ourselves out there at one point and been harmed, been traumatized. And so we go within, right? We don't want anyone to get close to us. Knowing that that is rooted from a real place. And also, you have the power to go a different direction, right? If you're looking to incorporate community into your life, if you're looking to build relationships, friendships in a new place abroad, that doesn't have to be your whole story. Just because it's a way that you took on to survive in the past, that doesn't have to continue forward if you don't want it to. You have the power to take a different direction. Yes, it's Exodus Summit. And I'll put the link in the chat. How do you build community? I think some of the ways are joining. So before you even get there, joining WhatsApp groups in the place that you're in, different Facebook groups, beginning to build those connections, maybe reaching out to people. So that when you get there, it's not like you have to do all this at one time. You've already done the prep work, right? Just like anything else in the process of moving abroad, it's a series of steps that you take, right, to get to your larger goal. And I think that's the same way with building community. If you're able to start before you get there, building connections, asking questions, seeking out resources, that can help you make that transition. I love this. I have developed a few simple rituals every time I land in a new country and also when I change sleeping locations. These processes ground me and help me connect to home and be present in the space. Thank you for sharing that. That's such a good tool. Rituals, right? To keep you grounded. Are there things you know that you need to be well? Right? Do you need to go on a walk every morning to feel mentally clear? And kind of creating that for yourself, again, even as we talked about, before you even get to the place that you're traveling to or moving to. Having rituals in place, as Dr. Crystal mentioned, having a toolbox to refer to, having something already set up to promote your wellness, to root you in the things that you're used to, which may help with being in such an unfamiliar place. If you're able to still do some of the things that you did in the place that you were, it can help with that level of everything's new, I'm just shutting down. Well, now you can refer to the list that you've made and revisit those activities to incorporate into your wellness practice. Yeah. Thank you for this. Yes, please hit the like button. Appreciate you. Okay. So something else that can come up around healing abroad. So the shame of not feeling okay. So you may have made this really bold, brave move abroad. You left, right? And still you may feel a heaviness. That doesn't mean that you did anything wrong or that anything is wrong with you. It really means that healing is non-linear, right? So along the way, along our journeys, things may open up wounds that we didn't expect. Travel does a really great job of essentially, like, I don't want to say forcing, but prompting you to move into a more flexible, adaptable way of being. And that includes emotions, right? So how can this also be an emotional practice? When there is something that I'm feeling, right? This is coming up. I'm still feeling heaviness. Allowing space for it, giving yourself flexibility and room around that versus feeling like, oh, I have to suppress this immediately because this is not how I should be feeling. Right? Any way that you're feeling, it's giving you information. Emotions are information that help us process what we're experiencing, that help us check in with our bodies, and that guide us forward. Right? So knowing that nothing is wrong with you, again, and you still get to feel a sense of peace, even if you're in progress, even if you haven't reached the goal, right? Even if you're still in the process of planning, that you can still incorporate daily practices to center yourself, to ground yourself, to guard your peace, which I just did a video on this recently, especially during these times. Safeguarding these parts of yourself and also not blaming yourself or shaming yourself for how you're feeling. And then another theme, right? Coming home to your own rhythm. So maybe this is the first time traveling or moving abroad that you've been able to truly slow down, that you've been able to breathe, that you've been able to incorporate a rest practice into your life. To question urgency. That can be a huge point of learning when you see people around the world who do not operate with the sense of urgency as we are accustomed to in the US, right? And understanding, where does that come from, right? Why are we always taught that we have to be, everything is urgent? And seeing how other people live, right? And allowing that to kind of bring in the information, the knowledge, the teaching to maybe go a different way yourself, right? Questioning those parts of yourself. Well, why do I feel like this has to be urgent? And can I slow this down? And can I grant myself rest instead of feeling like I have to push through? Inviting in peace, spaciousness, slowness. And these are really radical ways of being for Black women. And they are yours to reclaim. They are yours to reclaim. Okay. So I am happy to, let me go through the chat. Let me put my links in one more time. Again, I am guest hosting for Rashida. Thank you to Rashida again for asking me to guest host. I am hosting or facilitating a group healing program, which starts today, shortly, 2 p.m. Eastern, called Silence Your Inner Critic, for sensitive, introverted, and or empathic Black women unlearning negative self-talk, coming back into our power, understanding where the critical voices came from, and then knowing that we have the power to turn them down and eventually turn them off and come into our authentic being once again. So I'll put the link to that in the chat. Registration is still open. And yes, as a social worker, as a healing practitioner, I also offer one-on-one healing support. If you are in the process of transitioning abroad, if you've already moved abroad and you're experiencing some of the things that we went through today, like these emotions coming up that are unexpected, right? Like I think it was the shame that we talked about, right? For not feeling okay. When you're in this new destination that's beautiful, right? That's paradise. And now all of a sudden, these traumatic memories are coming to the surface. Where is that coming from, right? Because so often we don't have the ability to feel what these things are actually doing to us, what these environments are doing to us, because our brains are in survival mode. Our nervous system is in the sympathetic state. When we go to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the state our nervous system is in when it is at peace, relaxed, calm, that is a time when a lot of these memories may be coming back. Because it may be the first time that you've been able to have the space to process what has happened to you. And so I do offer one-on-one support with that as well. Let me put my link in chat. That is a link to book a breakthrough session with me. Yes, yes. Healing is not linear. Yes, I learned this after a major surgery, and it applies to emotional and psychic healing as well. Let that observation be another invitation for self-compassion. Yes, thank you for that. Yes. Yeah. Yep. So if you've noticed on this journey abroad, traveling, things that you thought you healed from, all of a sudden there's the wound again. That is the process of healing, right? Every experience kind of opens up a new layer that maybe we haven't visited in a while or ever. And all of a sudden this new experience is just opening us up to that experience that happened when we were 10 years old, right? 15 years old. That is the process of healing, right? Absolutely nothing is wrong with you. Your brain, your body just probably has not had the space, the time, the level of safety to be able to sit with what you experienced in that environment. Lady Sarita says, I've learned to tune into my body and shift. I tolerate less stress than before. I love this. I love this. Yep. Yep. Tuning into your body. Yes. Yeah. And it sounds simple, right? But it can really be such a difficult thing to do at first, to tune into how your body is feeling. Because there have been so many forces at play that have still tried to disconnect us from the information that our body is giving us. Right? To force us into survival mode, to just keep pushing ourselves past the time when our body says no more. Right? And given the foundations of the US specifically, right? Enslavement, colonization, we see the roots of this are very deep. And so if you're experiencing shame around resting, around being still, if it still feels new, uncertain, know that that's coming from a very real place, right? Probably years of socialization, And we also have the power to chart a new path. As communities like Exodus Summit have shown so many of us, right? We have the power to create our lives in a way that honors our sensitivity, our need for rest, our peace, and not just what someone else is telling us that our life has to look like, right? There are all these possibilities that exist outside of this really rigid way that we've been presented life has to look like this. And so many of us are challenging that notion, right? No, it doesn't, because I saw, and that's the power of representation, right? No, because I saw her make her journey, and this is what she did, right? And this is the level of peace that she now has. And so what you're telling me now, that this is the only way of doing things, I know that that's not true. And that's what happens like when we share our stories openly, right? We're able to learn from each other, again, get the resources from each other, not have to start at square one, and make so much progress in building our lives the way that we see fit, versus feeling like it has to fit this mold that someone else said that was what life had to look like, right? Okay, so as we're winding down, I would love to close with a short visualization. So if it feels good, you can close your eyes here or lower your gaze. You can imagine your future self at peace, incorporating ease into your life. She is smiling. She is thriving. She is moving slowly, intentionally. She is breathing deeply. She is regulating her nervous system as a practice. She is laughing more. She's inviting in joy unapologetically. And just sit with the questions. What is your future self doing? What does her day feel like? What sights and sounds surround her? Where is she at? How does she feel? And you can let this visual really anchor you in what we talked about today and the things that are possible for your life. And that is the beauty of travel, right? That really show you all of these different things that exist that we're told so often are off limits to us, right? And really sit with that vision as an anchor to carry you forward. And if you close your eyes, you can gently open them, inviting in gentle movement. Know that you can be anchored in inner peace, right? In any environment that you're in. If you're still making your plan, if you're traveling abroad, if you've already made the transition abroad, and some of the emotions that we talked about today are starting to surface, knowing that nothing is wrong with you, right? Your body has probably been in survival mode for quite some time. And so this may be the first time that you're able to really have space for what you've experienced. And so, yes, I think that is it. Going through my notes, just let me make sure one more time. Yes, I think that is it, y'all. Again, many thanks to Rashida for inviting me to be a guest host today. My YouTube channel is Marissa Price Heals, creating safe places for sensitive, introverted, and or empathic Black women to heal from trauma, process what we've been through. I have amazing guests who have shared their stories, their resources, their knowledge with us. I also have a community called Black Women Freelancers, as freelancing has really been my path out of a toxic, traumatic work environment. to help fund my travels abroad. So if you're interested in that, let me put the link here. And we do have a breathwork session coming up this afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, this is the link to join Black Women Freelancers. Oh, thank you for this. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, travel shows us possibility models of other ways of life. Absolutely. That's so important. It really does, right? Because you're seeing how other people are living globally, right? You're seeing how they are incorporating rest practices unapologetically, right? Taking 2 hours off during the day, right? Because I need a nap. And just incorporating that into your own life, right? As you said, like the possibility models. Do I have to rush? Do I have to push my body past this point? Or can I rest? Can I breathe? Can I move slowly? Right? Can I check in with my body? Yeah, I appreciate that. A question. Any thoughts on how to find your own rhythms when they feel so influenced by your amazing beloved but drama-filled children? I would say joy can be a path to establishing a ritual. So if you're able to, like throughout the day, recognize the things that bring you joy, right? The things that invite in the feeling that you're trying to have more of, whether it's ease, right? So when I was in this situation and I took a deep breath, how'd you feel before and how'd you feel after? If how you felt after is more of what you want to feel, then that's a practice that you can incorporate into your life, right? So now I'm going to do breath work, even if you have to do a calendar reminder, because sometimes I have to do that myself. In the mornings, right? Kind of inviting in creativity and exploration. This morning, I'm going to try to do journaling and see how I feel, right? This evening, I'm going to try to do arts and crafts and see how I feel. If it's more of that feeling that I want, then I'm going to do more of that in my life. Then I'm going to make that a practice. I'm going to make it a ritual. So I hope that was helpful. But just sitting with what brings you joy, what makes you feel calm, what puts you at peace. And usually the first step of that is becoming aware of our bodies, because we are so disconnected from our bodies. And the society deliberately does that. So coming into how does this make me feel when I breathe, when I walk, right? When I go on my morning walk, do I feel refreshed? And if so, that's something that I need to incorporate into my life going forward as a daily practice. And know that you're worthy of that too. That's often a big wound too. You are worthy of feeling at peace, at ease. That is your birthright, right? That is not something that is off limits for someone else to experience. That is for you. Yeah. Hey, Lonnie. Good to see you here. Yes, as always. Thank you. Hey, Mara. Good to see you. You're so welcome, Junkhead 3000. Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, do I? Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm going to put it in there. Yes, so my community, Black Women Freelancers, something I launched, I think it was over 2 years ago at this point, supporting current and aspiring Black women freelancers, because we're often completely left out of the conversation around freelancing. And on this journey that so many of us are on of traveling, moving abroad, being able to have income streams using your skill set, that is what the community is for, really to support you with that through the ups and downs of freelancing, and owning your skill set. Owning your skill set. So, yes, I hope this was helpful. Thank you all so much for these comments. This is also basic yet so revolutionary. That's it. At the end of the day, that's it. The tools to regulate, right, yourself, to heal your nervous system, they are basic. And yet it can feel so daunting and impossible to do, to incorporate breath into your life, right? These activities that bring you joy. But it is revolutionary once you begin to establish a practice of that and make it non-negotiable and view yourself as worthy of experiencing these things. That's the revolution. That's the individual revolution. Yes. Absolutely. Okay, y'all. With that, let's say thank y'all so much. And thank you to Rashida again for asking me to guest host. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, it's Marissa Price Heals on YouTube. And yeah, again, I am hosting a 4-week group healing program coming up starting today, 2 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking to silence your inner critic, come back into your authentic voice, that is the link to register, sign up, and I think that's it. This has been beautiful, and thank you so much to those of you who are waiting while we were experiencing technical difficulties. Appreciate you sticking around. And yeah, I think that's it. I hope you'll have a beautiful rest of your Sunday, and I hope to see you over on my channel. If it sounds interesting, Marissa Price Heals, creating safe places for Black women to process trauma, share what we've been through, share resources, and really come back into our full power after experiencing trauma. So, yes, appreciate y'all. Bye. Thank you so much.